Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast. First off, gotta say, I am a fool. I had the Giants winning this game by multiple possessions. I thought they would go to Germany, they would win 27-16, something like that, and I was wrong. I have to come out and say that first and foremost. I came in cocky. I wanted to lose this game, so it's kind of funny. I came in cocky they would win this game, but ultimately I wanted to lose. So I got my way here. I got what I wanted, but still, the optics of it is embarrassing because they wanted to win this game, obviously, and they still couldn't do it versus who you would think is the worst team in football. Now, the good news is, as we sit here and look at the big picture, the Giants have the second overall pick. But the bad news is that we have this quarterback who I don't even know how he's still playing. It's crazy because even the beat reporters that kiss the Giants' ass all the time, even people like that were saying it's time to bench Daniel Jones. People like Patricia Traina, for example, were saying it's time to bench Daniel Jones. People you would not expect to say that were saying that. It was that bad. But of course, the Giants, they do the definition of insanity thing. They put Daniel Jones out in the third quarter, and it looked better in the second half, but it wasn't great. The first half was awful. We'll go over that. But you have a bad quarterback situation. You have a GM who at this point, I don't even know if I could trust the guy. I just don't feel great about Joe Schoen. Brian Daboll even, I feel like things could have been better. It's tough because I do think Jones is atrocious, and I don't want to put everything on Brian Daboll, of course. But like you think about the flea flicker play when the two guys were running wide open, like Brian Daboll can't make that throw. That's up to the quarterback on the field. So I can't say that's on Daboll. I didn't like that play call in the first place. Like when I saw them run a flea flicker on a 3rd and 1 without seeing the result and seeing what was downfield, when I first saw Tracy or Singletary throw that ball back to Jones, I said to myself, what are they doing? This is not what you should be doing on 3rd and 1. So they do it. Obviously, it doesn't work, and Jones just can't pull the trigger for some reason. So anyway, it's getting bad, and they're now 2-8. They've lost 5 in a row, which is tied for the longest losing streak in the NFL. That's with the Raiders, who were on a bye this week. The Giants will go into their bye next week, thank God. I'm curious if Joe Schoen will speak to the media. I think they kind of owe it to us, honestly. Like, I don't know if John Mara will come out and talk to the fans, but at least Joe Schoen, you have to give us some sort of reasoning as to why this is the way it is. And the good part is, as fans, we got to see Hard Knocks. We got to see a lot of things from the offseason that normally we would not get to see. We know about the Russell Wilson situation, how they could have had Russell Wilson if they wanted him. We know about all the draft preparation stuff, and we know about what went into the backup quarterback position. We know what went into the swing tackle position and how that was not taken too seriously. And by the way, Evan Neal did not look too bad today, so that was good to see. There was a lot of things from the offseason and from that show where you're like, all right, this doesn't look great. So the confidence level in Joe Schoen, it's pretty low. And I will say I was really a believer in Schoen up until the Jones contract. I looked at that and said, I just don't know how you can get played by Daniel Jones that badly, So that was a bad look. But I was willing to see it through, and just based on how it's turned out now for the past year and a half, it's been ugly. So there's a lot to talk about with this team. I'm thinking about doing a bye week video. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'll think about doing something. But so anyway, let's get into the game, the reaction, talk about everything. Leave a like, and let's get into it. So we'll talk about the quarterback and the offense, of course. So Jones was just pitiful in the first half. And as I said, there were people that were beat writers for the team that were saying he should be benched, which you just would not expect to see. I was surprised myself. Even people that were not pro Jones at this point, but people that were definitely more fair about it. Even those people were like, yeah, there's no way they can put him out there. And of course they kept him in there. And I guess ultimately it was kind of the right choice. I mean, not to because it's dumb saying that because they lost, but Jones did look better in the second half. It wasn't great, but at the same time, he couldn't look much worse in the second half because the first half was that bad. You think about the first drive, even missing Malik Neighbors on that, I guess it was a comeback route or an out route on a 3rd down. Missing that throw was just bad. And then you think about some of the other stuff, like the flea flicker miss, and there was another one that was bad too. I have it written down in my notes section. We'll get to it. But a lot of bad moments, and of course the multiple interceptions. There was a throw that was behind Theo Johnson too. That was late in the game. I think it was 4th quarter. Even the interception that was to Tracy in the flat, that was a throw that if you look at the replay, it was behind Tracy. Like if he led him towards the sideline, it's probably a catch and a gain of a yard. It's one of those balls that you shouldn't throw in the first place because you're gaining like 1 or 2 yards at most, and it's just not worth the risk of putting the ball in danger like that. But of course, Jones did it, and it didn't work out. So we'll see if this is his last start as a Giant. I would not be too shocked if, at some point during this week they announce that they're going to maybe, I don't know if they'll say shut him down or something like that, but they might name Drew Lock the starter. But if they don't do it now, then when? I just don't know. If they don't bench him during this bye week, I feel like this is the perfect time to do it. And I believe they have a home game with the Buccaneers. Yeah, they have a home game with Tampa coming out of the bye. And Tampa's pass defense, for the most part, has been atrocious. They were okay today. They had their moments. They honestly should have beat the 49ers today. But in the few games before that, the Tampa Bay defense has been pretty bad. So I think that's a good spot to put in Drew Lock if you were ever going to do it. I don't see how you can put Jones back out there. The run game was not really that bad at all. I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, Tyrone Tracy did have the massive fumble in overtime. It's a really funny thing because Tyrone Tracy, I felt really bad for him from just on a human level. He's sitting there on the bench, just his hands in his face basically. He's definitely just sad as hell that his team went all the way to Germany and he kind of threw the game away. But it's not really his fault. It's you played your ass off. You gave us 5.7 yards per carry, a great 32-yard touchdown run. I personally don't want to see Tyrone Tracy be hard on himself. And I get it. You did have a pretty bad play in a critical moment. But at the same time, without Tyrone Tracy, this game does not get to overtime in the first place. But he did a good thing here. He obviously did not try to fumble the ball, but as for me and many other fans that wanted the Giants to lose this game, it was such a great feeling. That was the one time in this game I threw my hands up and was like, yes. And I feel bad because, as I said, I like Tyrone Tracy, but the Giants needed to lose this game. There are way too many teams in the NFL right now with 2 or 3 wins. You have to find a way to get one of those top picks this year. And I've just, this game had a lot of flashbacks to last year versus the Patriots. It was around this time of year. It felt like a game where both teams just should not have been in the NFL because they suck, and the game was not great itself. Obviously, last year's game was worse. It was 10-7. This one was a bit more entertaining, but it just felt like that once again. I'm here's a game where it's you got 2 teams that are just awful. Feels like neither should win the game, and it felt like once the Giants sent this to overtime and they won the coin toss, at that moment I was like, they're really going to win this freaking game. I hate this. I hate it here. And then Tyrone Tracy saved the day. Not for the Giants, but for us as fans, and honestly for the long-term vision of the Giants, Tyrone Tracy saved the day. For Devin Singletary, it was a pretty nice game. He did have a fumble, but it wasn't called a fumble because they blew the play dead, so he got lucky there. But 8 carries, 40 yards, 5 a clip, 14 yards was his longest run. Daniel Jones, only 26 rushing yards, did have a rushing touchdown again. One of those nice rollout bootleg plays to the left, and it worked out perfectly, so that was a good play at the goal line. Receiving-wise, Malik Neighbors had a scary moment. I thought he got a concussion again, which at that point it would really concern me because that would have been his second one. And seeing how some players have their careers not maybe completely ruined, but some players do have their careers ruined. I mean, yeah, you think about Austin Collie with the Colts back in the day or someone like that. Some players have their careers effed up by concussions. I think Percy Harvin was the same way. It might have been migraines that might have been caused by concussions. I don't know. But there are some players. I think about Chris Olave. What's going on right now with him? He went on the IR. He had a second concussion in about 3 or 4 weeks, and very talented wide receiver one for the Saints. And this is a similar situation where Malik had a concussion maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and now it almost happened again. And, he came down pretty hard. And I feel like Jones he's not the most friendly quarterback for receivers. Jones will throw you some hospital balls. We saw it with Darius Slayton on the Monday night game. He threw that whole shot to Slayton versus the Steelers, and Slayton got rocked. And yes, I mean, Jones is not too receiver-friendly when it comes to taking big hits, but overall, Neighbors had some nice plays, nothing too crazy, but 6 catches, 50 yards. Wan'Dale Robinson had some nice, short catches. Did have a 23-yard catch, but 5 for 51 on the day. Jalen Hyatt actually did get involved late in the game. There was a drive late where it was Hyatt for 3 straight plays. It was pretty odd. But overall, 4 catches for 39 yards. Definitely his best game of the year, but They needed him this game, so it's not like this was a all-time great performance, but it was nice to see he has some life to him. Theo Johnson, he was all right. 4 catches, 37 yards. As I said, Jones missed him late in the fourth quarter, threw behind him, almost got intercepted. And overall, the Giants, they had 342 offensive yards. They just have a problem just getting the ball in the end zone. Like, that's seems to be an issue here. They had too many turnovers in this game. Giants were a -2 in the turnover battle today. So it's tough to win games like that. And defensively, they had their bad moments as well. There were too many runs where Chuba Hubbard would break off a 20-yard run, a 25-yard run, a 15-yard run, way too many times. I feel like some guys individually played well on defense. I saw Tyler Nubin showed up a bunch. He made some big plays. Brian Burns had a sack on the second play of the game. He did get hurt at one point, but he came back. But he had a nice day. It was 4 solo tackles, 9 total, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss. So, like, Brian Burns showed up. That was good to see. I mentioned Tyler Nubin. He had 12 total tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 8 solo tackles. Okereke had a decent game stats-wise. Drew Phillips played pretty well. Dexter Lawrence, as he tends to do, had some really impressive reps. There was one where he just completely pushed the center back, and he just it's just crazy sometimes watching his highlights or just watching him play. It's like these guys aren't even there. He just like pushes them so easily. So Dexter Lawrence had one of his games where maybe the stats weren't great, but overall the guy's dominant. But I do think the Giants have to give some credit to Bryce Young. He did make some good passes. There was that crosser to Jalen Coker early in the game. I feel like the throw he had, I think this was fourth quarter, to David Moore. I'm pretty sure that was on Deonte Banks, but the throw he made to David Moore in the fourth quarter, that was an impressive play. It was like a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, and he threw it in the perfect spot. So Bryce Young, I mean, I'm not saying he's the future of the Panthers, but he's looked pretty good the last couple weeks. He does make some impressive throws, so we'll see what happens there the rest of the year. All right, so going through the game now, there was the Jalen Hyatt pass interference for 43 yards. I mean, I was happy to see them come out and take a deep shot on one of the first plays of the game, so I do like that. Daniel Jones had the horrible 3rd and 8 miss on Malik Neighbors. They were forced to punt. Now, this was interesting because they were at like the 38 of the Panthers, so they could have went for a 55-yard field goal, but maybe Gano was not healthy enough, and Gano missed one later anyway, so like maybe that was the right choice. So that was kind of, I feel like if it was healthy Gano, they probably kicked the 55-yard field goal, but maybe it was because they don't respect the Panthers' offense, one or the other, maybe a mixture of both. There were 2 chunk plays for Chuba Hubbard on the next drive. Carolina got inside the Giants' 10-yard line. Cordell Flott had a great pass breakup on Coker in the end zone. Jatavian Sanders had the touchdown. It was, I don't know who to blame for that play. It might have been like Cordell Flott who left his assignment, but Jatavian Sanders had that touchdown. It was great pocket maneuvering by Bryce Young, who he stepped up and kind of went to his right, found the open guy. It was a 90-yard drive for Carolina as well, so that was pretty rough for the Giants defense. 3rd and 8, play for the Giants offense. Mike Jackson broke up a pass to Wan'Dale Robinson. Kurt Warner on the broadcast said that Daniel Jones should have led him more to the sideline, and he did have a point with that, so that was a ball that could have been placed a bit better. Graham Gano missed a 43-yard field goal, so I wrote down it makes sense why they didn't try the 55-yard field goal. Maybe he's not 100% healthy, but healthy enough to play. There was the Giants punt returner. I forget his first name, but Smith Marset, he lost his cool, had 2 penalties, and 1 for trash talk and 1 for tossing the ball to J.C. Horn. When your offense is struggling, you just cannot have that. Like, you can't lose your cool like that, so that was kind of shitty to see. So, good for tanking, but not what you want to see if you're a coach. They tried the flea flicker play on 3rd and 1 at the 50-yard line. Wan'Dale Robinson wide-ass open. There was even a throw to be made to Malik Neighbors. Daniel Jones, just the deer in headlights look, just looks at it, doesn't throw the ball, takes a sack, and Giants are forced to punt. So that was embarrassing. The Giants get in the red zone. Jones throws that ball rolling to his right off of Clowney's helmet. It gets popped up in the air and intercepted. So that's another case of, could have had a play, could have thrown it out of bounds and lived to play another down. Didn't do it. So turnover there before halftime. At halftime, Jones remains the starter despite beat writers being confident he'd be benched. Of course, the Giants keep him in there. Tyrone Tracy had that nice touchdown where he was going to his left and had great vision, bounced it out to his right, and it was from, I thought I said it before, it was a 32-yard touchdown. Yes, so a great run there for Tyrone Tracy. Chuba Hubbard broke off a 25-yard run. That's the play where Brian Burns got injured chasing him down, but he was fine. Bryce Young, he ran up the middle for a 24-yard gain. There was the illegal formation play that took away the David Moore touchdown, and it was one of those plays where I think somehow the offensive lineman was eligible, but the tight end was covering him, so therefore it was an illegal formation. But then David Moore had that great catch on the slant, which moved the sticks. They picked up the first down, got inside the Giants' 5. Chuba Hubbard on 3rd and goal had a touchdown to make it 17-7. A'Shawn Robinson, who we'll talk about later, he had a sack on a 3rd and 5. Giants had the punt. Tyler Nubin had a great tackle on a 3rd down play where Chuba Hubbard caught the ball on the flat, probably saved the first down. There was a good throw to Theo Johnson on 3rd down inside the Giants' own 5-yard line, which extended the drive. It was later capped off by a Daniel Jones touchdown run. That was a 96-yard touchdown drive, too. So the Giants at one point, they were like 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, backed up inside their own 5-yard line. You're thinking like, man, the Giants will have to punt. Carolina might get the ball at like the 40, even the 50. But Jones made a pretty key throw to Theo Johnson. It was a good catch, too. It was a tough one to handle. So the Giants had a great offensive drive there. Chuba Hubbard, just like he did in the 2022 matchup versus the Giants where he fumbled the opening kickoff, this time he fumbled. It was a play where it looked like he had a bad injury too. I was thinking to myself, like, thank God he just signed that contract extension, because when he went down, it looked bad. Like, I thought maybe he had like a Dak Prescott type hamstring injury, like it looked bad. But he came back in the game. He looked fine, so Hubbard did have that fumble. Bryce Young misses Coker on a wide-open wheel route. This was in the 4th quarter, probably midway through the 4th quarter. I was pissed. They had trips receivers to the left. Coker was the guy closest to the inside on the slot. He ran like the wheel route. It was a perfect play design, and Bryce Young just overshot it. And I'm thinking, like, damn it, like they're gonna freaking, like, the Giants are gonna win this game now. Like, there were so many missed opportunities. So that one sucked to watch. Wan'Dale Robinson, this was a big play actually as to why the Giants may have lost this game, but Wan'Dale Robinson went offsides and lost the Giants 5 yards. You don't see offensive offsides very often, so that was like an interesting call there. Then there was the play on a 3rd and 9 where Daniel Jones throws to Theo Johnson over the middle, but threw it behind him. They showed like the end zone angle. It was an awful throw. Like maybe at first you thought it was like just knocked away by the defender. Like, no, it was an awful ball placement type throw. So the Giants punt with 3 minutes, 30 seconds to go. Xavier Legette picks up a 3rd and 8. It was a great throw on like an out route, corner route. So I thought right then and there this game might be over, and Chuba Hubbard dropped, or maybe it was overthrown a bit, but the ball was tipped up in the air, fell incomplete on a 3rd and 10. So the Giants got the ball back on their own 20 with 2 minutes and 23 seconds to go. They were able, with the help of Malik Neighbors and Jalen Hyatt on that drive, to get into field goal range. Graham Gano sends the game to overtime. And as we know, A'Shawn Robinson, first play of overtime, he creates a fumble on Tyrone Tracy. I tweeted once this happened, once a Giant, always a Giant. A'Shawn Robinson contributing to the Giants' tank. Love to see it. The Carolina Panthers took over on the Giants 23. Eddie Pinheiro hits the game-winning field goal, and that's that. So it was a pretty exciting game given how shitty these teams are, and the way it ended was perfect. For me as a sports fan, it was such a perfect tanking weekend. And as I said, I feel guilty rooting for tanks, but when it makes sense for the best interest of my team's long-term futures, I'm fine rooting for that. But I think about it, like on Friday, the Nets went to Boston to play the Celtics. They were up in that game for a lot of it. They lost it in like the last minute. I know they went to overtime that game, and they lost in overtime. So that was like a great, entertaining game. They still lost the game. Then the Nets played the undefeated Cavaliers last night. They had like a 14-point lead in the 3rd quarter. They lose that game late. The Giants in this game send this one to overtime. They lose in overtime. Like, it was such a perfect tanking weekend for my sports teams. So that was it's good for the big picture stuff. So looking at the draft order, it's exciting. You know, right now, this is kind of where we were last year. I think maybe we would have been like 3rd last year, but right now the Giants are 2nd in the draft order, and the team ahead of the Giants is a team that already has a quarterback that they just extended, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, of course. If the draft order was this, I would feel very good about the Giants' chances of getting, you know, a great quarterback in this draft, or one of the more highly touted quarterback prospects in this draft. I saw this was asked today by a lot of people as to why does Daniel Jones still start games for the Giants, and it's like, there's definitely some sides to it that are interesting to think about. I saw one side of it was that the Giants, well, mainly Dable and Shane, are using Daniel Jones as a shield to try and save their jobs, because at the end of the year, they can just say, well, he's just a bad quarterback. It's not us. It's him. He's the problem. You get rid of Jones, we'll be better next year. So I guess what they're thinking is, well, what if we replace Daniel Jones and we put Drew Lock in or DeVito, and this team is still ass, which probably would happen anyway? Then does that lower our chances as Dable and Shane to come back next year? So they can be looking at it like that. There's the other side of it where people speculate that maybe they're playing Jones because Jones actually gives the Giants the best chance to lose, and they want to keep tanking, which I actually believe it's more of the first part, the former. I don't think the coaches are on board with the tanking thing. I don't think anybody besides maybe Joe Shane is like on board with the tanking thing. I know Dable wants to win games. I'm sure Mara wants to win games. I'm sure the players want to win games. There might be only a few front office people that are like really trying to tank. So I honestly think they're kind of using Daniel Jones as like a shield and just put him out there and being like, he's the problem. Not me, not Brian Dable, not Joe Shane. He's the problem. So I wonder what it actually is. I just think it could be that. But ultimately, if I had to predict, I would think this was Jones's last start as a Giant. I really hope so. I'm not trying to say it with bias, but I'm just looking at it from an objective point of view. Like, I just don't know how they go back to that after today. And the stats he put up were horrendous. 22 of 37, under 200 passing yards, 5.1 yards per attempt, 2 interceptions. It's just like, and there were examples of receivers open. The offensive line wasn't that bad. He was sacked twice. This was a Panthers defense that was atrocious. Like the Panthers defense, and we went over this in the preview if you watched it, the Panthers defense was by far the worst in football. It's not even close. They were like averaging 4.5 points per game, giving up more than the 31st ranked team, which was Dallas. I believe it was the Panthers were giving up 32.7 points per game, and Dallas was like 28.2. It's like the Panthers were just beyond terrible. They were so much worse than the next team. So to go out there and have a stat line like this, it's just not good enough. The Giants can't keep saying DJ gives us the best chance to win. There's no way people believe that. I mean, they might just say it anyway just to throw him out there and keep losing games, but if he gives you the best chance to win, that says a lot about the guy who put the roster together, because there's no reason why Daniel Jones at this point should give any team in the NFL the best chance to win. That just means Joe Shane failed as a GM this offseason when it came to the quarterback room. It's like you can't have it both ways. Either Jones is the best guy who gives you a chance to win games, which we know is probably not the case, or you just did a terrible job assembling a quarterback room this offseason, and you should be held accountable for it. So if that's the thing that gets Shane fired is his mismanagement of the quarterback room this past offseason, then so be it. I think if they still had Tyrod, but they had somebody more competent, like a Jameis Winston or something, like they probably would be, I don't know, maybe a 4-6 team right now and not a 2-8 team. So I don't know, stuff like that. It just makes you think, like, how long is the leash for Joe Shane? I just don't know. He's had 3 off seasons here. I've said it plenty of times. I think you can turn around NFL teams in 1 to 2 off seasons, 3 at the most. And if you're not seeing major results after 3 off seasons, then it's kind of like, all right, what are we doing here? You know, like. So I don't know. I want to give Shane a pass because 2022 was unexpected, and they had a much lower pick than they probably wanted to, and they had to take, not had to, but they settled for Deonte Banks, which that has not turned out too well. But think about it. They even took Deonte Banks over Joey Porter. That makes you think as well. This regime also took Wan'Dale Robinson over George Pickens, so that'll make you think. Ultimately, if Shane got fired in the offseason, I would not care. I'm not even like that big of a Shane guy. I'm more of a Dable guy. I've kept saying it. I want to believe there's something there with Brian Dable. I'm not entirely sure. I just want to see him with a different quarterback, because all we've seen Dable have is Jones, DeVito, and Tyrod Taylor. And the only competent quarterback out of those guys was Tyrod Taylor. And when Dable had a healthy Tyrod Taylor, the offense was fun. Like, they were pushing the ball deep, explosive plays. I believe Tyrod had the longest air yards throw of any play last year in the NFL. Like, that shit was happening. And now with Jones, they have to dumb down the offense. I'm just hoping it's a Daniel Jones problem and not a Brian Daboll being a bad play caller thing. So it would be a shame to get a quote-unquote quarterback guru in here, a guy who helped develop Josh Allen, and the only real chance he had to develop a guy was Daniel Jones, so you just cannot develop. He just is who he is. So I would just hate to see that for Brian Daboll. But if they have to lose Shane and Daboll in the offseason, then so be it. There's plenty of other great options out there. The Giants just have to get it right. I'm not afraid of change. I've just, if this is not working after 3 off seasons of seeing this and now 3 seasons where 2022 was a great surprise. The end of the season was not great. They were like 3-5-1 to end the year that year. The last 2 seasons have not been acceptable. So if those guys are fired because of it, then so be it. It's not like Joe Shane and Brian Daboll have incredible resumes. I know Daboll has Super Bowl rings, but a lot of that is like as a quarterback coach and a wide receiver coach or tight end coach, whatever it was. I mean, yeah, the guy's done things in this league, but it's not like we're losing a guy who's multiple times Super Bowl winning head coach, and it's not like Joe Shane is multiple-time executive of the year. It's not like that's a thing. So I'll continue to hope for losses. I hope they finish the year 2-15 and wrap up that number 1 pick. And if they have to bring in a new head coach and GM to develop that guy, then so be it. I don't care. I'd rather have Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, if he's the guy, be developed by a head coach and GM not named Brian Daboll and Joe Shane than to have Joe Shane and Brian Daboll try to work with some quarterback who maybe they reached on at the 10th overall pick or something. So, and we saw as a fan base what happens when you force a quarterback pick. We saw this happen in 2019. Dave Gettleman, he felt his feet were at the fire. He forced a quarterback pick in 2019. They reached on Daniel Jones. They took him, and we're sitting here 6 years later still living this nightmare. So I don't want to force it. I want to have one of those top picks. Better quarterbacks in this class will be there, and you get one of those guys. This was a massive loss today. It was great for the Giants. Looking at the remaining schedule, they get a Tampa team out of the bye, and I do believe the Buccaneers have a bye next week too. So it's not like Tampa will have extended rest. Tampa's had a couple of rough losses in a row. They're still a pretty good team. I think Baker Mayfield has really ascended to like one of the better quarterbacks in football. I wouldn't say he's top 5, but I think he's somewhere around top 10 at this point. Like, he's done a lot. Even without Godwin and Evans in the lineup, he's still doing a lot. So I would say Tampa probably wins that game. They're at Dallas, and Dallas, by the way, looks so bad today. They were against Philly. Philly's on a heater, so maybe that's why, but Dallas looks so bad. Cooper Rush couldn't even handle snaps today, throwing interceptions, guys fumbling. Trey Lance came in through an interception. Jake Ferguson fumbled. Zeke fumbled in the end zone, which I don't even know why Zeke is still employed by the Cowboys, but whatever. They play Thanksgiving at Dallas. The Giants don't win at Dallas very often, so I just hope they find a way to lose that one, but the Cowboys look awful. The Saints got a win today with their interim head coach. They play them in week 14. They would have a week and a half of rest for that game. The Giants are home for that game. I think if they're going to win a game, it's probably that one. I'm not a big Saints guy, not a big Derek Carr guy, so I would say the Giants' best shot at winning a game the rest of this year is probably week 14 versus the Saints on December 8th. Then they play Baltimore. I don't see a way in hell the Giants win that game unless Lamar's out or something. At the Falcons, which the Falcons had a rough loss today to the Saints, but I would think the Falcons can beat the Giants. The Giants just don't have the offensive firepower to keep up with that team. The Colts in Week 17, maybe. I don't even know who their quarterback's going to be at that point. They might go back to Richardson, and at that point, I don't know how he's going to look, so that's a wait and see. Then at the Eagles in Week 18, the Eagles would be the scumbag team. If they had things locked up, they would lose that game on purpose to have the Giants not pick a quarterback, which is the right thing to do if you're Philly. So I don't even want to say that's a win. I see maybe 3 more wins at max. I think maybe 5 wins is the ceiling for this team, 5-12, which if you're 5-12, you're probably getting the top 5 pick. And we'll see if there's a prospect there they like, but I just want the first pick. I don't want to have to worry about a team trading up with Jacksonville or a team right before us taking a guy that we want. I just want the first pick. No excuses. No teams trading in front of you. No teams taking the guy you want. Just get the first pick. Get it out of the way. Get the franchise quarterback, please, and we can hopefully go on a nice 10 to 15-year run of being a competitive football team that plays for Super Bowls. I guess on the bright side, Evan Neal, the former 7th overall pick from 2022, he looked pretty good out there playing right tackle. He has this new stance apparently, so things worked out today. It's only the Panthers. I think it was Jadeveon Clowney against him, and Clowney's past his prime, so it's not like it's that impressive, but it's good to see that. And Illuminor held up at left tackle, so that worked out okay. I just don't know why, and people speculate maybe that Evan Neal's was getting punished by the Giants for some off-field issue. After seeing how Evan Neal looked today, which was pretty good, it makes you wonder why the hell wasn't he playing like 3 weeks ago? Like when Andrew Thomas first went out, which I think it was the game versus the Bengals, the Giants have had 4 games since then. Why was he not playing immediately after that? Like, it was pretty obvious at the time that the Giants' best offensive line rotation was to put Illuminor at left tackle and put Neal at right tackle, but they tried this whole Joshi Zudu thing. They tried the whole Chris Hubbard thing at left tackle, and look how that went. Pretty awful. So it helped them lose games, which I appreciate, but if the Giants' real goal is to win games, which once again, I believe the coaches still want to win games, why was it Zudu and Hubbard over Evan Neal? It just makes you think. So maybe he was being punished. I have no idea, but at least they lost those games. So anyway, just embarrassing right now to be a fan of this team, but it's for the best. It's just 2 more months of suffering. After this, nobody's going to care. You know, I tried telling people when the Tommy DeVito run was happening last year, it's like, we're going to forget about this. Like, at this point right now, nobody cares what Tommy DeVito did against the Packers. Nobody cares what he did versus whoever else they beat, Washington. The thing that's going to matter the most is getting the high pick and getting a quarterback that can lead you for a decade plus. I'm sure Commanders fans do not give a shit about losing 11 or 12 straight games last year. Like, they're very happy right now. Maybe not right now because they lost a tough game today, but you get my point. Unfortunately, this is how it's got to be, but it kind of is what it is. So if you have an idea for a bye-week video, let me know in the comments. I might just do one of those questions videos where I have you guys ask questions and I try to answer them to the best of my ability. Maybe something like that. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Maybe I'll talk about potential head coaching and GM candidates, or maybe quarterback prospects or something. Maybe all the above. So we'll see. But let me know in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. For those of you rooting for the tank, shout out to you guys. We got our way this week. Very unlike last year. It felt like every time we wanted them to lose last year, they won. At least this time they actually lost, so I'll take it. So it's good for the tanking people. It was a good day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.